Hey guys, and welcome back. Today we're going to be working on the old CRF230. Today is fork seal day. We got a couple of leakers on this sweetheart. We got them leaking right down there across the tire, and you can see we got all kinds of oil leaking right there on this thing. We also got, it looks like this one's leaking too. We got both sides are leaking, so we're going to replace them both. Thankfully, I don't think it's got into the brake rotor yet. This thing died of boredom. While it was sitting in the basement, waiting to be ridden, it decided to spring a leak to get some attention. Usually the way this thing decides to get attention is when the battery goes flat and I try to ride it, and it does not have a backup kickstart on it. So it's a rather aggravating situation. This time, it decided to let the fork seals leak so I'd work on it. So that's what we're going to fix today. Alrighty, we'll loosen up our bottom ones here. Then we'll leave we'll go ahead and loosen this one up. Grab a wrench and loosen up our fork cap. Yeah, that wasn't too tight. That's awesome. We'll leave that one because we've got to pull the front wheel off this yet. Gonna do the same thing on the other side. All right, we're going to jack it on up, and then we'll go ahead and get our tire off of it, or wheel off of it, and drop the forks out of it. Loosen up these four. We clamp the front axle. Then we'll see about getting this sweetheart out of here. Had a little tightness to it. We need to get the front tire off the ground before we pull the axle out, I think. All right, we got her off the ground. Pull our axle out, slide our wheel out. Got the spacer there. We're gonna go ahead and loosen up these and then drop the whole fork out. Oh, probably ought to take our caliper off first. There we go. Now we can get it. Then we got a hose clamp here that uses 10s. Set all that aside. Just let that hang there. It's not very heavy. It can hang there. Well, our clamps are all loose. Let's slide something in there and pop them open just a touch. One of these is hanging up. Not that one so much. There it is. Slide that baby right out of there. All right, we got to get our fork boots off here. That's a terrible screwdriver. Maybe it's the screw. Must be the screw. This side come loose. I think I'll step right up on the struggle bus here. Right tool for the right job. It's wonderful. There we go. Get our clamps off. Grab yourself a fairly dull pick. Come in underneath the bottom edge of these sweethearts. And then work them up off the fork. Kind of like that. Get the top of them broke loose. Slide it on up off here. There we go. There we go. Next step, we're going to take the top caps off. You know what? Let's see if we can get the bolts out of the bottom of them. This bolt right here sometimes is a pain in the hiney to get off. So let's get our fork set up in a vise and get her going. Wow, that worked really well. Let's just go ahead and take that out of there. It works so good. It works so good. All right, we're going to drain the oil out of this, sweetheart, into that pan. We're going to pull the fork cap off. We didn't have spring pressure because we already dropped the fork leg down. Otherwise, would have had some. Set that back to the bottom, pull our fork leg out, and try not to drip too much oil all over the garage. Set that over there. Of course, I've already got fork oil everywhere. Because why not? I opened a fork. All right, we're gonna go set this over on the bench, I think. There, now we'll just let that drip. Try to make a little less of a mess. All right, let's drive our fork seals out. These have a metal ring on them. Most fork seals don't anymore, but these do. So I want to catch the very edge of that with a screwdriver. I'm just going to thump it and pop that baby out of there. Like that. This is just a dust wiper. This is the actual seal. Now, if we look down in here, you can see there's a snap ring in there. We're going to take that thing out. Like so. Then, get our tools out of the way here. We're just going to pop this thing apart. Like that. We'll let that one sit over here and drain. It's got the stop cone in it right there. That's what this is. This is the dampening tube, and it comes out. The rear spring, there it is. These are very basic forks. Even though I like this bike, I don't ride it like Supercross or jump it big or anything else. I ride it down at Chadwick and places like that where I'm more concerned about keeping the front wheel on the ground over rocks and stuff. Now we're going to pull these off. This is our fork seal. Then there's a washer that goes behind it. That washer, and then this goes in there. This is a bushing, and it sits in the top of the fork leg. There's another bushing down at the bottom. So we have gained a step over the Kawasaki we did. This one actually has fork bushings. It's not saying much. There isn't much else to it. These seals pretty much have just died of boredom. Now we'll do the other one. Chisel with a handle and get right underneath that edge there. Just give it a tap and do a tappy tap tap, and out she comes. Then we got to get the snap ring out. Looks exactly like the other one. We'll stick our screwdriver in here. You can't really see, can you? Stick our screwdriver in here. Let's grab a different spot. There we go. Just like that. That's out. Then we're going to lay it down all the way out, and then give her a tap. And she just pops apart. Now what's going on here is that snap ring is setting on top of the seal, this fork seal. This is just exactly what we had a while ago. Fork seal, big spacer washer, and then the bushing. That snap ring is setting right on top of the seal, just like that. And whenever you pop this out, then you can pop everything else out. Now what's going on here when you're popping that apart is this bushing is getting smacked on that bushing. And you're going thump, 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 or thump, thump, thump until it pops out. So when you get that apart, you always want to check these bushings along the edge of them, make sure they're still in good shape. These come apart pretty easy. Some of these things will come apart much harder than that. All right, we got our stuff out of the washer. Now we'll kind of blow it off. My washer junk was incredibly dirty. We have brand spanking new fork seals. See right here, the old Honda 51490 KR6305s. Look quite a bit like our originals. We're going to take and lubricate our seal with fork oil. We'll set that aside for a minute. And let's see, this is the one that does not have the thing in it. I need to put my spring on here. Where did they go? Here they are. It's my top out spring. This whole thing goes in here like this. With any luck, it'll come out the bottom like that. Then, we can assemble it this way. Then we put our top out cone on the bottom of it, like that. Slide our whole fork together. Hopefully that top out cone stays in place. Grab one of our original bolts. See if we can get it started in here. We might need to put a spring in first. Looks like we will. Now these springs are progressively wound. No, not really. Won't matter which way they go in. We'll put those bad boys in there. We'll put that up against the vise there. And then we'll start our screw in here. Somewhere just a minute ago I had a socket that fit this. Ah, there it is. Get everything down in place here. Now we're just putting that in. We're not tightening it up yet. Because how in the world could we even take a chance of forgetting to tighten it if we just went ahead and tightened it now? One of our bushings, one of the two, doesn't matter which one, that goes on here, our washer. These washers are stamped, and one side has a sharper edge than the other. I always put that sharper edge down in this case. I just don't want the sharp edge near my fork seal. This is an adjustable fork seal driver. It goes on here. We're going to tap that seal down in place. That I think our washer's caught. Let's take a look and see what's going on here. I'm going to put this straight up and down. I'm going to aim you up just a bit. See if that gets us somewhere near the ballpark. Could. Slide this on here. That bottoms out on there before it quite bottoms, before it's all the way in. Our seal, since we don't have a sharp edge here, we're not too concerned about laying a piece of plastic or anything over it. But the real important thing is that the writing goes out. You see the writing on here, and it goes out. This side does not have writing, so it goes this way. Be very careful not to pop that spring out. There's a spring underneath the seal here. See if I can get you to focus. There's a spring underneath the seal here, and you want to make sure that stays in place. We'll tap that in. Until we can get our snap ring in. Then we will lay our snap ring in place. We'll take our screwdriver, push it down into place. Here, click. Then we need to make sure that both ends and all the way around are down in the groove. And they are. Then we'll take our fork dust seal, put it on here. Now to do this, I just turn the fork seal driver upside down. This is the end we use to drive the fork seal in. This is the other end. And I just set that down there like that. We're going to tighten up our screw down here in the bottom. Ah, there it caught. This fork is pretty much done with the exception of putting oil in it. And recommended fork fluid, SS8, that's what we got. And fluid level is 380 cc. You know it's clean if you give it a little and blow in it. That just finishes off the cleanliness. 380 cc's of SS8 Honda oil. Cap back on. We'll snug these off in the bike once we get them put back in. That's one fork. All right, we need to put our boots back on. Slide these down. Get it started through the top. We're not really so concerned about the top because we'll set that after we get it on the bike. But the bottoms, these have a drain hole, and that drain hole goes to the back of the fork. On these, the tabs for the caliper will be at the back of the fork. So we just need to work that sweetheart down over there. That sits just like that. Nothing really holds it in place. It just sits there. Now, since this is the back side of this fork, our clamp needs to go on there in this way so we can get to it from the outside of the bike once it's installed. Whoa. Maybe I need a strap to hold the front down now. Alrighty. What we're going to try to do is set these forks so only the cap is sticking up out of there. Just like that. Now we'll give it just a little tap with the impact gun to set it in place. This thing is just something to hook a tie down to when you're hauling the bike. And that'll be tight enough for now. We'll go back and torque those. Torque on those is very important. I'm going to set our tire back on, and that'll kind of balance the bike back out. All right, there we go. Tighten that up pretty good. Yep, feels good. Down, I just did the other side. We'll go ahead and do this side. I wasn't watching my camera angle good enough on the other side, and you just didn't get to see me do it. Truly exciting watching somebody torque stuff down. Now this is a 2005, and I've owned it since it was new, so it makes this thing 11 years old. This is the first time I've put fork seals in it. That's not too bad for a dirt bike. Now, I'm sure most of that's due to these boots. Keeps most of the junk out of there. Not all of it, but most of it. There's a good chance if I rode this on a regular basis, they still wouldn't be leaking now. Now I was going to go through and do steering stem bearings on this, but man, they feel really good. No notchiness, no nothing. So I just didn't have the heart to do it. All right. All right, that kind of does the fork seals in this thing, and we're pretty much done with this bike. I'm going to fix this wire where it goes into the headlight, so I have both high and low beam again before I put it together. But that's pretty much the story. These are back together, pretty simple forks. If you're worried about torque specs and all that, please look them up. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. This is Raymore Repair, and I'm glad you tuned in and watched us today. Make sure you subscribe. It doesn't cost you a thing and really helps me out. Like the video. Please leave some comments down below about how I didn't torque stuff or use the wrong fork oil or whatever the case may be. So yeah, feel free to comment. Thanks a lot. God bless.